Welcome back to the Sens Spotlight podcast brought to you by the Sick Podcast Network. And before we get started, bet the views with Betway and scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the details section to create an account and download the app. Must be 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Betway is an official sponsor of your Ottawa Senators. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. That really helps out the show, and hit that hype button on YouTube as well. Pretty deflating loss for the Senators today in today's afternoon tilt. A lot of that had to do with how good the Minnesota Wild were. Hughes and Faber are hard to beat, especially when you're trailing early. That first goal, Allmark don't love it. It took a weird bounce, but still didn't like that play. And earlier in that, before the first goal, he had a couple wobbly rebounds. Outside of that, he played a really good game and made a bunch of big saves. And but that first goal, I think, really deflated the team. A lot of people are talking about the effort of the team today. I think some of that is just how good Minnesota was. They played a type of game that the Senators like to play, where especially when they take a lead, they're just hounding you down. Great sticks, super good in their own end. And when you're chasing a game, when you have Hughes and Faber, you're not going to get the puck enough. They're going to play defensively. They're just going to play keep away, and a lot of that happened. And I thought as the game progressed, Minnesota grew into the game, and I thought Ottawa's first period was actually pretty good. Bad play by Spence at the same time for that second goal, and it was just an uphill mountain to climb. Great news, though, is Jake Sanderson's back. He said he was a bit rusty, talking to us post game, but I thought he played pretty well. And obviously he mentioned that he's still battling through it to an extent. But if he's healthy, which he should be, knock on wood, I think that changes everything for this team. And I know they have so many injuries right now. Now Cleven's out week to week, which is just so gut wrenching. They're just guys are going down like flies. At least no one got hurt today. Drake Batherson fell down after he scored and looked a bit in pain, but he's fine. But obviously, with Cleven out, Sanderson's return, the Senators are just a better team with Sanderson in for Cleven. You wish they all could play. You wish Shabbat was healthy. You wish Nick Jensen was healthy. Um, but I think, the shots were in Ottawa's favor. And obviously, I think the play of the game was in Minnesota's favor. But Minnesota's a really good team. And you could argue that they're the best team the Senators play down the stretch here before the end of the season. Carolina's going to be tough tomorrow. Tampa's playing well, although they likely won't have Hedman. So I think some of it was the Sens didn't play well. I thought they were too sloppy, too many turnovers. I thought Tim Stützle just wasn't a good game from him. Wasn't north-south enough. Had a couple bad turnovers. I thought Brady Tkachuk played really well. Obviously, the line, shout out to Graham Nichols. At a certain point, the line was out shooting the Minnesota 9-1 at even strengths, while the rest of the team was getting outshot like 5-13 midway through the second. So that line was really good. I thought it was mostly Tkachuk and Greg carrying it. I thought Cousins had a bunch of shots. He had that one shot where he shot into to pads, and then obviously Hughes had that breakaway and almost scored shorthanded. But I think that this team needs more from Dylan Cousins. He has 3 points in his last 12 games. Like, that's just not enough. So they're in a predicament right now. The good thing is that the Uptown scoreboard is in Ottawa's favor, at least so far while I'm recording this. We'll see what happens tonight. But Detroit losing means the Senators still control their destiny. If the Senators go 6-0 to end the season, guess what? They'll be in a playoff spot. Which is crazy to think. And 6-0 isn't that impossible, right? Like, because the games are counting down, obviously you want them to win, and they've lost they've lost 4 of their last 5, and they're somehow still in and around a playoff spot with controlling their own destiny. So the way I see it is, like, the hockey gods might not be smiling on them for all the injuries they've had, but you remember all year, and I talk to players, and they're like, it feels like every time we get a win or 2 wins in a row, every team around us was winning, right? In that stretch in January, in that stretch in February and March. That's not happening. The teams around them are losing now and keeping Ottawa in the race. And just sucks, again, you think about that game in Tampa Bay, they should have got at least a point. Today, if things had gone their way, they could have at least got a point against a good team, right? Pittsburgh, if they just capitalized on their 10 chance, like, there's a way in which they're 3 points up and are not kind of smooth sailing to the finish line, but they're in a really good spot. At the same time, for me, covering this team, and if I'm a Sens fan, just as long as this team controls their own destiny, I'm still feeling a bit optimistic. And the thing is that if you can get to that floor, if you can get through these next two games and still control your own destiny or be in a playoff spot or both, I think that's where you want to be because tomorrow's going to be tough. The good thing is Carolina's playing tonight and then he's going to play at 5 tomorrow. They're going to probably get in at like 3, maybe 2 a.m. Uh, on a back-to-back in a game that is kind of meaningless to them. That's in Ottawa's advantageous. And the game against Tampa Bay, Tampa's going to be on the second night of a back-to-back and Ottawa won't be. You get through those two games and if you can get 3 points, and then you go into Florida, New York, Devils, Leafs. I think you really like where you're at. And I think the fact that you have Jake Sanderson, and he said he was rusty, but that changes the whole outlook of the game. And I know they didn't play that well. You could tell how much different it was in terms of them exiting the zone. Now, they could exit the zone. They weren't getting through the neutral zone, but they weren't spending all their time in their own end, especially when Sanderson was on the ice. And I think playing against better competition these next two games, him being there, obviously, again, you like everyone, but I think that will have a huge impact. And just having him back makes this team so much better. And I think they're going to create more and they'll be in an okay spot. I know people feel it's doom and gloom, but if Sanderson is even 85, his percent of himself, I don't think he'll be 100, but if he's 85, 90%, I think the Sens are going to be in a good spot. I thought Allmark, again, just you just don't like that first goal, but otherwise I thought he played really well. He made a bunch of big saves. All the other three goals were not on him at all. Just kind of just clear cut chance breakdowns. And just not good. I thought Zetterlund, like I think some guys that are struggling right now is Fabian Zetterlund. He's playing on the fourth line. Claude Giroux's getting more time on the fourth line. He was going out for skates during TV timeouts because he wasn't playing that much, right? So those guys are in a place right now where the Sens need some depth scoring, and if those guys aren't starting to turn their game up, it's going to be a lot of the second line for the Senators and whenever Tim Stützle and Drake Batherson have a good night, right? Like Zetterlund only played 9 minutes. Um, Giroux played 14, but just again, those guys have been struggling. Amadi was always good. Nick Cousins has been fine. I find Fogel's kind of dried up a little bit as that fourth line. I just don't think has brought the same level of kind of zone time. At the same time, they're playing better teams and with the injuries on the back end, right? It's just tough. I thought Spence obviously had the turnover, but I just didn't think he was as crisp as he was in games prior, and that's the case. And you know, the thing is that in this long season, the Senators have been playing at this must-win tempo, shall we say, for about 2 months. And the thing with that is that you're gonna have a letdown here and there. You're gonna have a shitty game here and there, right? They had that against Florida. They had that against today, I think, against Mini, where they just weren't crisp, right? I think Tampa Bay was an up and down game, but you're gonna have a couple of those. And just can you stay in the fight when that happens? And thankfully they will be. Detroit's playing terribly. Columbus is playing terribly. Like everyone's falling off. It's now becoming the pillow fight to, take Connor McDavid's words from the Pacific Division, and it's now going over to the wild card race and the Metro race in the East. So, yeah, it's just a race to the bottom right now. But I think what the Senators really need is the one guy that I felt has kind of gone down a little bit, and I'm not going to be too critical of him because he's been so good this year. Tim Stützle just hasn't had that same bite to him the past 4 or 5 games. I thought tonight just couldn't get anything going, wasn't sharp, wasn't creating enough. And it was interesting. Post game, Travis Green said, we just had some of our best guys who just weren't playing well. And, I think he was referring to Timmy. I think he's just forcing it too much. And I think with him, when he wants it so bad that he'll try to do everything himself, right? And he had that turnover, I think it was in the first period, behind his own net. He tried to do it between the legs, like pass off the backboard to catch it. Didn't work, and it almost led into a goal. And obviously he has the skill to do that, but it's just make the quick read, make the right play, go north to south, shoot the puck. Like he had a couple chances on the power play where just looking east-west too much. And, Green talked about it, like on the power play, you don't want to just shoot it. You want to basically create seam passes because the data will tell you if you do a cross seam pass from one side to the other and it works, you're going to score like 25-30% of the time. That creates really, because the goaltender, if they're set, they can see the puck good and they're filling up the net. If they have to go side to side, they're not set and they're not filling up the net as well. So I get why Timmy in the power play tries to do that. That you see a lot of goals like that. Sometimes I also think the old adage of just getting pucks on net, getting screens, just weren't good at that tonight or today. So yeah, this team's okay. I actually feel optimistic about the way they played. I really think, Travis Green says this a lot, but about how, the other team has a say in the result. I thought Minnesota played an exceptional game tonight. Just so good on the forecheck, just so good at hounding on pucks, intercepting kind of odd man rushes. And sometimes you have to give credit to a really good team, right? That's the unfortunate part for the Sens is they're playing their gauntlet of the schedule right now against some really good teams. So, if this was the way, if they lost this game to Florida like they did on Tuesday, and they play them next Thursday, if it's a game like that where they don't show up or they don't play that crispy or things aren't working, I'm like, okay, that's a problem because you should be crisp against those teams and, you should overcome them just with your sheer talent. That wasn't the case tonight. I thought Quinn Hughes and Brock Faber just controlled the whole tenor of the game. So overall, tough loss, deflating. If you win tomorrow, you're in a great spot, right? And that's what just have to win the next day. They're not out of it. There's still playoff hopes. They're still fine, I think, for the most part. So just win, baby. Move on to the next one. But thanks to everyone for watching this. We'll talk to you guys soon with myself and hopefully Pierre McGuire later this week. And ciao.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Sens Spotlight on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.